The night they paired me with an older woman at a singles mixer, I realized the room had not come there looking for love. It had come there looking for proof. Proof that everyone was still attractive enough, young enough, interesting enough, untouched enough by time to be chosen quickly under bad lighting with a name tag stuck to their shirt. My name is Bennett Cole. I was 36, divorced, and only at that mixer because my sister had weaponized guilt with Olympic-level precision. You work from home, she'd said. You eat standing over the sink. You call the dog park a social life. Go meet people. I meet people. The UPS driver does not count. He knows my name. That's because you order coffee filters in bulk like a man preparing for winter. So that Friday night, I stood inside a hotel lounge in downtown Charlotte wearing a navy shirt, dark jeans, and a name tag that said Bennett, architectural drafting consultant, which somehow made me sound less interesting than a printer. The event was called Matched After Dark because apparently embarrassment needs branding. The concept was simple. You walked in, filled out a card, answered a few questions about hobbies and values, and then an organizer paired you with someone for 10-minute conversations. Every 10 minutes, a bell rang, and you moved on. Efficient. Awful. The room was full of people pretending not to judge each other while doing almost nothing else. Men checking watches. Women checking exits. Everyone laughing a little too loudly, like confidence was a group project. I lasted 20 minutes before I started planning my escape. Then the organizer, a woman in a red blazer with a headset and the energy of a cruise director, tapped her microphone. All right, everyone. For our next round, we're doing a surprise match. No cards, no preferences, just chemistry. That got groans, applause, and one man near the bar saying, "Dangerous," like he was auditioning for a cologne commercial. I was assigned to table 7. When I got there, she was already seated. And the room noticed before I did. That was the first thing I registered. Not her age, not her face, not her dress. The room. That little ripple of attention people try to hide when they think something has become interesting for the wrong reason. She was older than me, mid-40s, maybe, late 40s. It was hard to tell because she carried herself with the kind of calm that makes age feel less like a number and more like rank. She had dark auburn hair swept loosely over one shoulder, fine lines at the corners of her eyes, a black dress that fit her simply and well, and a glass of water untouched in front of her. Her name tag said, Vivian, gallery owner. She looked up at me as I approached. Not nervous, amused maybe, but guarded underneath it, like she had already understood what kind of little experiment the room thought it was watching. Bennett, she said, reading my name tag. You look like you've just been sentenced. I pulled out the chair across from her. That depends. Are you the punishment or the jury? One corner of her mouth lifted. Neither. I'm apparently the twist. That line was so clean, I laughed before I could stop myself. Good laugh, too. Real. A few people nearby looked over. Vivian noticed that, too. Of course she did. The bell hadn't even started our 10 minutes yet, and I already understood she was sharper than most of the people in the room. I should warn you, I said, sitting down. I'm terrible at mixers. Good, she replied. People who are good at these events concern me. Because they practice? Because they enjoy being evaluated in fluorescent intimacy. I stared at her. Then I laughed again. The second time, the guy at the next table actually stopped talking to his date for half a second. Vivian's eyes flicked toward him, then back to me. Careful, she said softly. You're making this look accidental. What? Enjoying yourself. There was no bitterness in her voice. That made it worse. The bell rang. 10 minutes began. The organizer passed by our table with a smile a little too bright. You two have fun. Vivian watched her go, then looked at me. That woman hates subtlety. She runs singles mixers at hotels. Subtlety probably resigned. That got the first real smile out of her. And I'm not saying the whole room changed when she smiled. I'm saying mine did. For the next few minutes, we talked about work. Her gallery was small, independent, and focused mostly on regional painters and photographers. Mine involved restoring old building plans, adaptive reuse projects, and convincing developers that historic trim was not an enemy combatant. That's surprisingly romantic, she said. Old window frames? Keeping something from being erased. I looked at her then. Really looked. Not because she had said something flattering, because she had understood something most people missed. Before I could answer, a laugh came from the bar, not loud enough to be openly cruel, just loud enough to be heard. The cologne commercial guy was talking to two other men, and one of them glanced at Vivian before whispering something. Then, all three looked at me. One mouthed dramatically, "Good luck." I saw Vivian see it. Her expression didn't change much, but her hand moved once around the stem of her water glass. There are moments in a room when everyone expects you to choose a side without admitting there are sides. This was one of them. I could have ignored it. That would have been easy. I could have given Vivian a polite smile, survived the 10 minutes, and left with the same quiet cowardice most people mistake for manners. Instead, I stood. Vivian's eyes lifted to mine. The room noticed again. The organizer looked over from across the lounge. I picked up my chair, carried it around the small table, and set it beside Vivian instead of across from her, close enough that everyone could see exactly what I was doing. Not touching her, not performing romance, just choosing the seat next to her. Then I sat down, turned toward the men at the bar and said calmly, "You'll have to speak up. We can't hear the joke from here." The room went silent, completely silent. The man who mouthed "good luck" suddenly became fascinated by his drink. Vivian did not look at them. She looked at me, and for the first time all night, the guarded amusement in her face slipped into something warmer, something surprised. "You didn't have to do that," she said quietly. "I know." "Then why did you?" I looked at her water glass, her name tag, the room pretending it had not been caught enjoying something ugly. Then I looked back at her. "Because they thought pairing me with you was the joke," I said. "And I don't like jokes where the funniest person in the room is the punchline." For a second, she said nothing. Then Vivian leaned back slightly, studying me like I had just become far more inconvenient than she expected. The bell rang again. Round over, nobody moved. And Vivian, still looking at me, asked softly, "Bennett, are you always this dangerous to shallow rooms? I should clarify something." I did not move my chair beside Vivian because I thought I was saving her. That would have been insulting in a different outfit. I moved because I was tired of sitting in rooms where cruelty wore cologne and called itself confidence. Vivian kept her eyes on me for a second, after asking whether I was always dangerous to shallow rooms. Then she looked toward the bar, where the three men had suddenly discovered that their drinks required deep study. "I have to admit," she said, "that was efficient. I try not to waste public embarrassment. Yours or theirs. Depends who earns it." That got another smile from her, but this one had a warning inside it. "You should be careful," she said. "With them? With yourself." Her voice stayed light, but her eyes sharpened. "Men sometimes do one decent thing in a bad room and mistake themselves for heroes." That landed good. I liked that she did not hand out gratitude just because I had performed basic character. "You're right," I said. That seemed to surprise her more than the chair move. "I am?" "Yes." She tilted her head. That was quick. "I don't need a committee to know when someone says something true." Vivian studied me then, as if deciding whether I was charming by accident or dangerous on purpose. The organizer appeared beside our table before she could decide. Red blazer, bright smile, panic behind the eyes. "All right," she said, clapping once too softly. "Time to rotate." I looked up at her. "I'm good here." Her smile tightened. "The format works best when everyone participates." I did participate. I found the only conversation I like. A few people nearby heard that. Vivian looked down at her water glass, but I saw the corner of her mouth move. The organizer lowered her voice. "Sir, we do have a structure." Vivian leaned back in her chair. So did the Titanic. I nearly choked. The organizer blinked. The woman was lethal. "I'm sorry," Vivian said politely. "That was unkind to ships." This time, I did laugh. Fully. The room heard it again. But now, it didn't matter. Something had shifted. People had gone from watching us like a mistake to realizing we were the only table enjoying ourselves honestly. The organizer drifted away, wounded but professional. Vivian turned to me. You realize you've ruined the algorithm. I didn't know romance had one. This version does age bracket, income range, fitness level, number of acceptable travel photos. She glanced around the room. Apparently the heart wants mild compatibility and a decent LinkedIn photo. That explains why mine's failing. You have a bad LinkedIn photo? I look like I was being held politely against my will. That may be the most honest LinkedIn photo in America. We lasted through half of the next round before giving up. Not dramatically. We didn't storm out. We simply stood at the same time, which somehow felt more suspicious. The organizer saw us leaving and tried one last time. Vivian, Bennett, are you sure? The final round includes preference cards. Vivian picked up her coat. I think I've had enough democracy for one evening. I opened the door for her, not as a performance, because it was there. Outside, the hotel lobby was cooler and quieter, all marble floors and expensive plants nobody was allowed to touch. Vivian walked beside me without speaking until we reached a small seating area near the windows. Then she stopped. Why are you really leaving? She asked. I looked at her. Because I want to talk to you somewhere people aren't taking mental attendance. No. Her eyes held mine. Why are you leaving with me? There was no flirtation in the question. Not really. It was a test of precision. So I didn't give her a polished answer. Because you're the first person tonight who made me forget I was trying to survive the evening. Her expression changed. Not softened exactly, but something in it quieted. That's a better answer than I expected, she said. I also have worse ones if you prefer balance. Later, we walked 2 blocks to a small bar attached to an old theater. Not loud, not trendy, just dim lights, a long wooden counter, and jazz playing low enough that nobody had to shout. Vivian chose a booth near the back. The server came by. She ordered sparkling water with lime. I ordered black coffee because apparently my idea of nightlife had become a diner with better furniture. She noticed. Coffee at a bar? I'm divorced. My rebellion has limits. That made her smile into her water. There it is, she said. What? The reason you look like you were waiting for the fire exit. I laughed once. That obvious? To me, I wasn't sure whether I liked how she said that. I did. That was the problem. My sister made me go, I said. She believes my post-divorce life has become too quiet. Has it? Yes. No hesitation. I've been accused of over-editing my own feelings. I'm trying a new system. What system? Answer before I can make it sound better. Vivian looked at me for a long second. Then she said, That sounds dangerous. You like that word. I like accurate words. Fair. The server brought our drinks. Vivian squeezed lime into her water slowly, buying time or giving it to me. I couldn't tell which. Then she said, My friend bought my ticket. To the mixer? Yes. She told me it was elegant, curated, and age-inclusive. Vivian's smile turned dry, which, translated from hopeful friend, meant I would be the oldest woman in a room full of people pretending not to notice. You almost left. Yes. When? When the organizer looked at me and said, Don't worry, we have someone open-minded for you. My hand tightened around my coffee cup. Vivian saw it. Careful, she said again, but softer this time. Don't turn angry on my behalf if it makes you stop listening. That line was so good it annoyed me. So I listened. She looked down at her glass. I'm not ashamed of being older than you, Bennett. I'm not ashamed of my face, my life, my history, or the fact that I don't look like I did at 28. Her eyes lifted to mine. But I am tired of rooms acting like a woman past 40 is either invisible or brave for showing up. That one stayed in the air. I didn't rush to fill it. Eventually I said, For what it's worth, I noticed you before I noticed the room. Her expression flickered. You're good at that, she said. What? Saying something that almost sounds like a line, then making it too specific to dismiss. I can make it worse. Please don't. I noticed your water first. That got a laugh out of her. My water? You hadn't touched it. Everyone else was drinking like social anxiety had a 2-item minimum. You were just sitting there, perfectly still, like you'd already solved the room and disliked the answer. Vivian looked at me then in a way that made my coffee feel suddenly unnecessary. That, she said quietly, is exactly what happened. And for the first time all night, the age difference stopped feeling like the room's judgment and started feeling like the least interesting thing about her. Then her phone lit up on the table. She glanced at it. Her face changed. I didn't ask. She turned the screen slightly toward me anyway. A text from someone named Marissa. Please tell me you didn't leave with the younger guy. People are talking. Vivian stared at it. Then she laughed once, but there was no humor in it. I looked at the message, then at her, and before I could stop myself, I said, "Let them." Her eyes lifted, not amused this time, interested. "Bennett," she said, "that is either confidence or trouble." I held her gaze. Maybe both. I should have known better than to say maybe both to a woman like Vivian Vale. She didn't blush. She didn't giggle. She simply watched me across the booth with that calm, assessing expression, as if I had handed her an interesting object and she was deciding whether it belonged in a gallery or in evidence. Then she set her phone face down. "Trouble usually sounds better before it costs anything," she said. "That sounds like experience." "It is." I didn't rush to answer. That was one thing I was learning about her quickly. Vivian didn't reward fast responses unless they were honest. Anything too polished seemed to bore her. So I leaned back and said, "My divorce taught me that avoiding trouble doesn't guarantee peace." Her expression shifted. Not sympathy. Recognition. "That is unfortunately true." The bar hummed around us. Low music, glasses, a couple laughing near the door. Outside, hotel guests moved past the window in little groups, all dressed for evenings that probably made more sense than mine. Vivian picked up her water again. "How long? Since the divorce?" She nodded. 2 years. "Was it awful?" Quietly. That made her look at me more carefully. I continued before I could turn it into something easier. "No huge betrayal. No dramatic final scene. We just got very good at being polite while becoming strangers. By the time she left, the house felt like a waiting room where nobody had an appointment." Vivian's face softened at the edges. "That may be worse," she said. "It was less cinematic. More expensive." She laughed, but gently. Then she said, "I was married once." I should not have been surprised. I was. Once? 14 years. Divorced at 41. She said it plainly, but I could hear the weight behind the clean delivery. "What happened?" Vivian smiled into her glass. "He traded depth for novelty and called it rediscovering himself." I stared at her for half a second. Then she added, "That was the polite version." "I'd like the impolite version." "No, you wouldn't." "You're right. I'd probably get angry, and you'd tell me not to stop listening." That brought her smile back. "Good. You are learning." There was a strange comfort in that moment. Not easy comfort. More like standing beside someone at the same overlook after taking completely different roads to get there. We weren't the same. That was obvious. She had a decade on me, a gallery, a history, an elegance I could not fake if I had a month and a consultant. But we were both old enough to know that loneliness can look very respectable from the outside. Her phone buzzed again. This time, she ignored it. Then mine buzzed. "My sister. Please tell me you didn't leave the mixer already." A second message arrived before I could answer. "Wait. Someone posted a picture. Is that you moving your chair next to an older woman like a Victorian bodyguard?" I looked at the screen. Then, at Vivian. She lifted one eyebrow. "Bad? My sister has discovered journalism." "Show me." I turned the phone. The picture had clearly been taken inside the mixer. Vivian seated at table 7. Me carrying my chair around to sit beside her. The men at the bar in the background, caught looking exactly as smug and stupid as they were, Caption from some attendee I didn't know, when the surprise match goes off script. Vivian stared at it. For 1 second, she looked amused. Then she looked tired. That's fast, she said. I can ask my sister who posted it. No, she handed the phone back. Don't. Vivian, no. Her voice stayed calm, but something in it sharpened. I spent enough years letting rooms decide what version of me they wanted to circulate afterward. I'm not chasing this one. I hated how reasonable that sounded, mostly because I wanted to go back to the mixer and have a civilized conversation with someone's phone, by which I mean throw it into soup. Vivian read my face and sighed. You are imagining violence. Only toward technology. That's still growth. My phone buzzed again. My sister, okay, but she's beautiful. Also, you look weirdly alive. Call me later. I didn't mean to smile. Vivian noticed. What? I showed her. She read it, and for the first time since the photo appeared, something warmer crossed her face. Your sister has taste, and no boundaries. The two often travel together. We sat there a while longer, but the mood had changed. Not ruined. Just exposed. The room from the mixer had followed us through a screen, and now pretending we existed in a private bubble felt naive. Vivian finally said, I should probably go. I didn't like how quickly the sentence landed. I liked even less that it made sense. Because of the photo? Because I know how quickly curiosity becomes appetite. She reached for her coat. And because I don't want tonight to become a story people enjoy more than we do. That was a good line. Too good. I stood when she did. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the sidewalk glossy under the streetlights. We walked without speaking until we reached the corner where ride shares kept slowing down hopefully. Vivian pulled her coat tighter. This was unexpected. Good unexpected? She looked at me. The question from the first night turned back on her. A slow smile touched her mouth. Complicated, unexpected. I'll take that. You shouldn't take things too easily. I don't think anything about you is easy. That made her quiet. Not offended. Just caught. Then she said, My gallery is 2 blocks from here. I looked down the street, then back at her. You inviting me? I'm deciding whether I'm brave or foolish. Those often share office space. Her eyes narrowed. You stole my line structure. I'm adapting. For a second, she looked younger than she had all night, not because age vanished, but because guardedness did. Then she nodded toward the street. Come on, Bennett. Before I regain judgment. The gallery sat between a closed tailor and a wine shop, its front window dark except for one low security light. Inside, the space smelled faintly of wood floors, paint, and expensive silence. Vivian turned on a few lamps. The room came alive slowly. Paintings along white walls, photographs in black frames, a long table with catalogs stacked neatly, a half-finished glass of water near a laptop. This is yours? I asked. Yes. It should have intimidated me. Instead, it made sense of her. Not the polished part. The patient part. The way she looked at people like she was deciding what they were trying not to show. She stopped in front of a large painting near the back wall. A woman seated by a window, face turned away, one hand resting on the glass. This is my favorite, she said. Why? Because everyone thinks she's waiting for someone. Vivian looked at it. I think she finally stopped. That answer made something in my chest go still. I turned toward her. You know, I said quietly, for someone who claims she doesn't want to become a story people enjoy more than she does, you say things like that and make it very difficult not to care what happens next. Vivian looked at me then. Really looked. No room. No mixer. No laughing men. No photo. Just her. Just me. And the dangerous feeling that the evening had stopped being about everyone else's reaction a long time ago. She took one step closer. Not enough to touch. Enough to make the air between us change. Then tell me something honest, she said. All right. If there had been no room watching, no insult, no chance to prove you were different, her voice dropped, would you still have chosen the seat beside me? I held her gaze. This time, I answered fast. Yes. Her expression changed, and before either of us could move, the gallery door rattled. Vivian turned sharply. A woman stood outside in the dark, knocking on the glass with one hand, phone in the other. Vivian's face went still. "Marissa," she said. The friend who had bought the ticket. The friend who had sent the message. And judging by Vivian's expression, the one person who could make this night turn from complicated into something much worse. Marissa knocked again. Not hard. Worse. Urgent. Vivian didn't move at first. She stood in the middle of her own gallery, shoulders squared, face calm in a way that looked almost painful. "Do you want me to leave?" I asked quietly. Her eyes stayed on the door. "No." One word. Enough. She walked to the entrance, unlocked it, and opened the door only halfway. Marissa pushed in anyway. She was probably Vivian's age, maybe a little younger, wearing a camel coat and the expression of someone who had spent the last 10 minutes rehearsing concern and arrived with accusation instead. "Oh, thank God," she said. Then she saw me. "You're still with him." Vivian closed the door slowly. "Good evening to you, too." Marissa looked between us, then lifted her phone. "Do you know people are sharing that picture?" "Yes." "And you left with him?" Vivian's face didn't change. "I was there when I left. That's not funny. It wasn't intended to be." Marissa turned to me then, and I could see the calculation happen. Younger man. Mixer. Viral-ish photo. Gallery after hours. A story she had already decided was dangerous before asking one useful question. "Bennett, right?" she said. "Yes. I'm sure you're having a very interesting night, but Vivian has had enough people treat her like a novelty." That hit the room sharply. Vivian's eyes narrowed. "Marissa." "No," Marissa said, still looking at me. "I'm sorry, but I'm not going to stand around while some man from a singles mixer gets a thrill out of being seen as open-minded." The gallery went very quiet. I should have gotten angry. I almost did. But Vivian had already told me twice not to turn anger on her behalf into something that stopped me from listening. So I said, "That would bother me too." Marissa blinked. Clearly not the answer she wanted. I went on, "But if you're worried I'm using her to look decent, you should ask her what happened instead of walking into her gallery and making another decision for her." Vivian looked at me then, not gratefully. More like I had passed a test she hadn't told me I was taking. Marissa's face flushed. "I'm trying to protect my friend." Vivian's voice came in, low and controlled. "By talking over her in her own gallery?" That stopped her. Finally, Marissa turned back to Vivian, and the fear under the anger started showing through. "I saw the photo. I saw the comments. People were laughing, Viv." "I know. I bought you that ticket because I thought it would be good for you to have one normal night. Not this." Vivian laughed once. Soft, not amused. "Marissa, you bought me a ticket to an event where the organizer told me she had found someone open-minded for me." Marissa went still. "What? That was her phrase?" "No," Marissa shook her head. "I told her you were brilliant and intimidating and that men usually got scared. I told her to pair you with someone who wouldn't waste your time." Vivian's expression shifted. Not softer. More complicated. Marissa looked genuinely horrified now. I didn't know she framed it that way. "I believe you," Vivian said. "But believing someone is not the same as being unhurt." Marissa knew that too. Her eyes dropped. "I'm sorry." The apology sat there. No performance. No dramatic hug. Just 3 words that did not fix the evening, but at least stopped making it worse. Vivian crossed her arms. "You can worry about me without managing me." "I know. Do you?" Marissa swallowed. "I'm learning in public, apparently." That got the faintest smile out of Vivian. "Barely. But enough." Then Marissa looked at me again. This time less like an investigator and more like a woman trying to understand the damage before she stepped on it. "You really moved your chair next to her?" "I did." "Why?" Vivian started to answer, but I shook my head slightly. Not to silence her. To take responsibility for my own choice. "Because the room wanted distance," I said, "and I didn't." Marissa studied me. Then, slowly, She nodded. That's either a very good answer or a very practiced one. Fair. Vivian looked almost pleased. He accepts fair criticism. It's unsettling. Marissa's mouth twitched despite herself. The tension loosened by 1 degree. Not enough to make the night easy. Enough to let everyone breathe. A few minutes later, Marissa left after making Vivian promise to text when she got home. At the door, she paused, looked at me, and said, "If you hurt her because you like the idea of yourself with her more than the reality, I'll become extremely unpleasant." I'd expect nothing less. Good. Then she left. The gallery door closed behind her. Vivian locked it and rested her forehead briefly against the glass. "You okay?" I asked. She didn't turn around. "No." I waited. Then she said, "But I'm not embarrassed." That mattered. She turned back to me, and the lamps made the whole gallery feel softer around her. Paintings on the walls. Rain starting again outside. The two of us standing in the kind of silence people either run from or remember. "I should be," she said. "That's what's strange. A younger man. A humiliating mixer. A photo going around. My friend bursting in like I've lost judgment." She looked at me. "There are so many convenient reasons to feel foolish. And do you?" "No." Her voice dropped slightly. "I feel awake." That went straight through me. I took 1 step closer. "Vivian." She lifted one hand. "Careful." "I know." "No, you don't." Her eyes held mine. "I'm not a daring story for you to tell later. I'm not proof you're different from the men in that room. I'm a woman who has spent years being told what kind of attention she should be grateful for." "I know," I said quietly. "Do you?" I nodded once. "I think so, but if I don't, I want to learn without making you teach me the hard way." That was the answer that changed her face. Not completely. Just enough. She stepped closer this time. Still, no touch. Just the space between us shrinking into something honest. "And if tomorrow everyone decides this was ridiculous," she asked, "then tomorrow everyone can be wrong." Her laugh came out small and disbelieving. "Dangerous again." "No." I looked at her properly. "Certain." Vivian's eyes moved over my face like she was looking for the performance and not finding it. Then she reached up, touched the edge of my collar with 2 fingers, and said, "You have no idea how careful I'm trying to be." "I do," I said, "because I'm trying too." That was when she kissed me. Not like a woman trying to prove she could still be wanted. Not like a man trying to prove he was brave enough to want her. It was quieter than that. More deliberate. A choice made with the lights on, after the room had already done its worst and failed to make her small. When she stepped back, she looked almost annoyed at how affected she was. I felt the same. "Good? Unexpected?" I asked softly. Vivian looked at me for a long second. Then she smiled. "Very inconveniently good." Someone inside lifted a phone. Vivian saw it. So did I. For half a second, neither of us moved. Then she reached for my hand. Not to hide, not to perform, but to decide. And when the phone camera pointed toward us through the glass, Vivian turned slightly toward me and whispered, "Let them see the part they don't understand." Vivian did not let go of my hand. That was the first thing I remember clearly. Not the car outside. Not the phone pointed at the gallery window. Not the strange, stupid feeling of being watched by someone who wanted a story without earning the truth. Her hand in mine. Warm. Steady. Deliberate. The person in the car took the picture anyway. Of course they did. Then the car pulled away, and the gallery went quiet again, except for the rain tapping against the glass. Vivian looked at the empty street, then down at our hands. For a second, I thought she might pull away. She didn't. Instead, she said, "There it is." "What?" "The part where this becomes real enough to cost something." I looked at her. "Does that make you want to stop?" She turned back to me. "No," she said. "It makes me want to be very clear." That was Vivian. Even after a kiss. Even after a ridiculous mixer. Even after being mocked, photographed, defended, challenged by her best friend, and kissed in her own gallery like the night had decided subtlety was overrated, She still wanted clarity. So we sat at the long table near the catalogs and had the least romantic conversation two people can have after a first kiss, which made it strangely perfect. She told me she would not be someone's rebellion. I told her I did not need a rebellion. I needed a life with more truth in it. She said she would not compete with the ghost of my divorce. I told her my divorce had taught me what silence costs, not what love should be. I said I didn't want to turn her age into some brave statement. She said, "Good, because I am not a public service announcement with earrings." That made me laugh so hard she finally smiled. By the time I left the gallery, it was after midnight. We did not pretend the evening had been normal. We did not pretend the kiss meant everything was simple. And we definitely did not pretend people would stop talking because we had decided their opinions were shallow. By morning, the second photo was already circulating. Not viral, not famous, just enough. A few comments under the Mixer post, a few jokes, a few people acting like an age gap between consenting adults was a public emergency. One man wrote, "Bro really took the cougar bait," which told me everything I needed to know about his loneliness and vocabulary. I expected Vivian to retreat. She didn't. At 11 that morning, her gallery account posted a photo of the painting she had shown me the night before, the woman by the window, the one everyone thought was waiting. Caption, "Not every woman is waiting to be chosen. Some are deciding who gets to stay." No mention of me. No explanation. No apology. That afternoon, she texted me, "Dinner. Thursday. No audience." I wrote back, "Yes." Then another message came through. "And Bennett?" "Yes." "Do not wear the shirt from the Mixer. It looked like you were trying to convince a bank you were emotionally stable." That was when I knew I was in trouble. Thursday became dinner. Dinner became Saturday morning at her gallery while she unpacked a shipment and I pretended not to enjoy being handed tasks. Saturday became a walk through a design market. Then, a Sunday afternoon where she came to my place, met my sister, and somehow within 20 minutes had Lydia laughing so hard she forgot she had planned to interrogate her. After Vivian left, Lydia stood in my kitchen with her arms folded and said, Okay what? She's terrifying." She is not terrifying. She looked at me once and I confessed that I lied about liking yoga. "That sounds like efficiency." Lydia pointed at me. "You look happy." That shut me up. Because I did. Not giddy. Not foolish. Not like a man trying to prove that life after divorce could still surprise him. Happy, in a quieter way. Like a room had opened somewhere inside me and the light was better there. 3 months later, the Mixer photo was old news. But Vivian was not. She was part of my days now in small, specific ways that felt more intimate than drama. She sent me photos of terrible hotel lobby art. I sent her old building details she would either admire or insult. She learned that I made breakfast badly, but consistently. I learned she hated people touching her gallery walls, but would let small children sit on the floor during openings if they were looking at the art seriously. 6 months in, I helped her hang a new exhibition. The main piece was the woman by the window. Except this time, beside it, Vivian had placed a second painting from the same artist. Same woman, then Vivian herself carrying one suitcase and saying, "If this becomes domestic in a boring way, I reserve the right to object." It did become domestic. Beautifully. We argued over wall colors. We hosted small dinners. We walked through galleries in cities we visited and whispered cruel but accurate reviews to each other. Sometimes people still looked twice when they realized she was older than me. Sometimes they didn't. The difference was that neither of us looked away anymore. 2 years after the Mixer, I proposed in her gallery after closing, not in front of a crowd, not under the painting by the window, under the second one, the open door. Vivian stared at the ring, then at me, and for the first time since I'd known her, she had no elegant sentence ready, so I gave her one. "You once asked if I would still have chosen the seat beside you if no one was watching," I said. "I would. I do. Every day." Her eyes filled. Then she said, "That was almost too sentimental." "Almost? Don't ruin it." "I won't." She said yes. Then she kissed me in the empty gallery. And this time nobody was outside with a phone. Years later, when people asked how we met, Vivian usually said, "A very badly designed singles mixer." I'd say, "Best bad room I ever walked into." And she'd give me that look, the one that still made me feel like I had been chosen by the sharpest person in the room, not because I made a scene, but because I stayed after the scene was over. The truth was, they paired me with an older woman because they expected discomfort. They expected the wrong reaction. They expected her to be the test. But they had it backward. The test was never whether I could see past her age. The test was whether I could recognize a woman who had already become exactly herself, and be brave enough to sit beside her. What would you have done if you were paired with someone at a singles mixer and realized the whole room expected you to treat her like a joke? And have you ever seen people